Okay. Um, Good morning, everybody. The California Racial Equity Commission Community Engagement Committee meeting is called to order at 9:35 a.m. on Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. As we begin today's virtual meeting, we will begin with a few reminders. First, the information and opinions expressed by presenters or public commenters before the commission reflect the views of the speaker. They do not necessarily represent the views of the commission or the governor's office of land use and climate innovation. Second, as a public advisory body, we will allow public input at all meetings. However, we stand united with other Californians in condemning hate and recognizing the harm it causes. A hate act is a hostile expression or action committed in whole or in part because of a person's actual or perceived identities or characteristics, including race, color, disability, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender, including gender identity and/or because that person is part of a protected group. The rich diversity among our population in California is one of our state's greatest assets, and we are committed to supporting and protecting all people of California. As a reminder, if you are a victim or witness to hate, racism, or bullying, you can report the incident and receive free support through California versus Hate resource line by calling 833-8-NO-HATE or visiting californiaversushate.org. We will now have Ms. Raynell Walker, Special Assistant, who will read the community acknowledgement for this meeting. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. I will begin by acknowledging the indigenous peoples of the lands that we are on today. We meet today on a virtual platform. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we call home. We acknowledge with gratitude the city of Sacramento in its traditional and ancestral lands, which are the Nisenan and the Southern Maido Valley and Plains Miwok, and also the Putwin Winton peoples and the people of the Wilton Rancheria. May we acknowledge and honor the Native people who come before us and still walk beside us today on these ancestral lands by choosing to gather together today in active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation for Sacramento's Indigenous peoples' history, contributions, and lives. We're grateful for all the Indigenous people who continue to care for and remain interconnected with this land. We promise to be conscientious stewards of this land for the future generations and are committed to ensuring inclusion of Indigenous people to inform the California Racial Equity Commission. Thank you. Now we will have Ms. Raynell Walker, Special Assistant, to read the community acknowledgement.
Thank you. Community acknowledgement. We thank and honor the indigenous nations of this land who contributed to the building of this country. We recognize the forced and unpaid labor of California indigenous people under Spanish, Mexican, and U.S. rule, especially within the mission system, where Native people were enslaved to build infrastructure, harvest food, and serve colonial institutions. Our ancestral lands acknowledge systems and labor continue to shape the culture and economic foundation of this state. Native nations in California contribute to the arts, governance, land management, cultural revitalization, and health sovereignty. We acknowledge and thank the people of African ancestry who were stolen from their homelands and brought to this country and whose free labor played a major role in the formation of the economic wealth of this country. We also honor the contributions of Black ancestral scientists, inventors, and entrepreneurs whose contributions were stolen or never acknowledged. We honor and will not forget the thousands upon thousands of lives lost at the hands of enslavers, vigilantes, law enforcement, and other forces of suppression in this country. We affirm and uplift those of African ancestry living in this country today as a living testimony of the strength, love, faith, and fortitude of a resilient people. We acknowledge the international and global immigrant contributions who shaped this country's economy and helped build its infrastructure. We honor the contributions of Asian immigrant community, including Chinese railroad workers, Japanese farmers, Filipino cannery workers, and field workers, and other Asian workers. We acknowledge Latinos and Mexican immigrants have been integral to shaping economic growth in the U.S., from building homes, filling roles of agricultural needs, and other service industries have been influential to providing everyday needs to fellow Americans. These communities have filled critical workforce gaps and enriched American society with different intersectionalities of culture and beliefs. We recognize the impact of U.S. militarism, colonial expression, capitalistic tourism, appropriation of cultural heritage, and more have affected Pacifica and oceanic people and island relations. We acknowledge the harms of climate change and environmental pollutants from global powers that are harming islands and destroying oceans. Thank you for your community's contributions and roles of service in public health, the teachings of reciprocity, and how those lessons can be woven into societal structure serves as a model of hope and change for this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker, for reading the community acknowledgement. Dr. Estes, can you please provide a brief overview of this, of the agenda for this meeting?
Thank you, Commissioner Salas. And yes, today we are currently on agenda item 1, welcome and call to order. We will then have public comment on matters not on the agenda. There will be an approval of the committee's last set of minutes, which were from May 22nd, 2025. There will be a presentation by our senior program analyst, Dylan Turner Keener, on the implementation of the community engagement strategy that you all approved about a year ago. And really just some guidance on next steps where you all will be able to take action should your body decide. And then we'll move through next steps for staff action and adjournment. I anticipate us only being here for about an hour prior to our implementation and technical assistance committee.
Thank you so much. Jess Godot, a program analyst for the Racial Equity Commission, will lead the roll call and provide an overview of the public comment process.
Thank you, Commissioner Salas. I will now lead the roll call and provide an overview of the public comment process. Commissioner Virginia Hedrick. Present. Commissioner Traco Matthews.
Here.
Commissioner Angelica Salas.
Present.
We have 2 in-person commissioners here with us today, and please note that Commissioner Hedrick is following the teleconference rules for advisory bodies outlined under Government Code Section 11123.5, which allows members to participate remotely. Under this code, remote commissioners are required to remain on screen throughout the meeting if in attendance. Thank you to everyone joining us today in person or online. I'm here to provide guidance for the processes for this hybrid meeting, which we have designed with the intention of maximizing access by members of the public. For those joining the webinar online via Zoom or by phone, please note that your microphone is automatically muted when you join. To minimize the risk of background noise, you will not be able to unmute yourself. For those joining online via Zoom, please note that the webinar platform doesn't enable video for attendees, so we will not be able to see you. If you need technical assistance during the meeting or have a question about the meeting process, there are a few ways to contact us. If you are online via Zoom, the best way is by using the Q&A function with several members of the Racial Equity Commission team monitoring it. If you joined by phone and you have access to email, please email racialequitycommission@lci.ca.gov. To make an in-person public comment, you can pick up a public comment card at the public comment staff table right here and return it to one of the staff members. You can sign up early for public comments on items on the agenda. Please note you will need to submit a public comment card for each item you wish to speak on. If you plan to make a public comment virtually, you must be online via Zoom, either through the webinar or phone option. To submit an online public comment form, visit racialequity.lci.ca.gov/meetings and complete the public comment card form linked there. You'll need to complete a separate form for each item you wish to speak on, and you may complete a form at any time during the meeting. When the public comment period for your item opens, we will call on your name. When you hear your name, please raise your hand. To do this online in the Zoom webinar, click Raise Hand under the Participants menu. Find that at the bottom of your screen, and then to raise your hand by phone, press *9. When it's your turn to speak, a member of our team will unmute your microphone. If you're online, you will see a window pop up alerting you that the host is unmuting you. You will need to click the option to approve unmute. After that, you can begin your comment. If you are on via your phone, you will hear a recorded message alerting you that your line is unmuted. You can begin your comment once your line is unmuted. Each speaker will have a maximum of 2 minutes to make their remarks. Speakers requiring or using interpretation services are allotted 4 minutes to facilitate full participation. If you're online, you'll see a timer pop up on your screen. Please monitor that and wrap up your remarks accordingly. Whether you are online or on via phone, Commissioner Salas or staff will notify you when your time is up. After that, we will mute your microphone. You do not need to take any additional action. If you are unable to complete the online form but would like to make a public comment, please email racialequitycommission@lci.ca.gov. Thank you. Back to you, Commissioner Salas.
Thank you. We will now take any public comments related to agenda item number 1.
As a reminder, you may submit a virtual public comment card by visiting racialequity.lci.ca.gov/meetings and completing the public comment card linked there. You can also pick up an in-person public comment card at the public comment staff table and return to us. You will need to submit a public comment card for each item you wish to speak on. And there are no public comments for this item. Back to you, Commissioner Salas.
Before we move into the rest of our agenda items, we will now first take any public comments on items not on the agenda.
There are no public comments for this item either. Thank you.
Now we move into agenda item number 3, the approval of the May 2022-2025 Community Engagement Committee meeting minutes. First, I just wanted to see if there's any discussion on the minutes. Are there any comments, questions, or discussion for the committee?
No discussion from me.
Okay, we will now take any public comment related to this agenda item. Minutes approval.
There are no public comments for this item.
Okay. May I have a motion and a second to approve the May 2022-2025 Community Engagement Committee meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Please take the roll call.
Commissioner Virginia Hedrick,
Aye.
Commissioner Traco Matthews,
Aye.
Commissioner Angelica Salas.
Aye.
The vote is 3 in favor of approving the May 22 committee meeting minutes. The motion passes. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 4, we will hear updates from staff regarding community engagement. Our senior program analyst, Dylan Turner Keener, will present an update on the implementation of the community engagement strategy and highlight next steps for work on of the commission. I will now pass it over to Dylan.
Hello, everyone. It's good being here. Forgive me if I sound a little not the best. I have a cold. So good morning, commissioners. Today, I will be recapping themes we heard during our community roadshow, walking you through my proposed community engagement strategy timeline, and also recapping 2026 engagement efforts, as well as reviewing a data-informed strategy produced by one of our contractors highlighting community engagement and supporting outreach efforts, and finally guiding us through a discussion. The commission and staff have planned and engaged in 50 hours of public meetings, 160 hours of meetings with communities, allies, and advocates, with over 1,000 community residents in attendance of our meetings throughout California, including areas of Yuba City, the Bay Area, Delano, Sacramento, Lamont, Salinas, LA, Fresno, Riverside, Klamath, and Imperial. The commission has now visited approximately 20% of the 58 counties in California. There we go. Okay. From July through August, the commission returned to Bakersfield, LA, Fresno, Riverside, Sacramento, Yuba, and Imperial, partnering with community-based organizations to host our roadshow events. This was an opportunity for the commission to engage with community members, as well as share updates about the framework and gather input from community. Some of the common themes we heard from our roadshow events, as well as capturing information from listening sessions and meet and greets, is illustrated here by our graphic note taker, Raven, who really amplifies community voices through art and illustrations. Some of the themes we heard during our roadshow visits, and again, our engagement throughout California, one includes access to basic needs. In Lamont, Antelope Valley, Imperial Valley, as well as Riverside, residences cited a lack of affordability as well as quality housing. Another theme is economic equity. In many of the areas we visited, a common comment from communities mentioned was discussing the high cost of living combated with low wages. Another theme I want to highlight is education equity. There have been calls for more culturally relevant curriculum, more mental health support, vocational training as alternative to other pathways of success besides higher education, and smaller classroom sizes that were shared specifically in areas of LA, Oakland, and Lamont. Language access and communication is another theme. In Oakland, Imperial Valley, and Fresno, as well as Yuba City, communities highlighted how there are language barriers that prevent effective access to services such as healthcare, legal services, and public benefits. Another theme I will highlight is civic engagement and representation. Communities expressed a strong desire for more participatory governance, and I'll be later sharing in my proposed strategy timeline how we took in that input. Because many community members have felt underrepresented as well as ignored, and they're looking for more engagement from government. And this was heard in Lamont, Imperial Valley, Oakland, and Antelope Valley. Systematic racism and discrimination is another theme I will include. Many members of community throughout all the areas we have been visiting highlighted experiences of racial discrimination as well as enduring disparities. And lastly, faith, culture, and storytelling. And events like in St. Columba in Oakland and at the Gurdwara in Yuba City, there was an underscore of the power of faith-based spaces and how they're hubs for healing, connection, and organizing. In December of 2024, I'll highlight the community engagement plan was approved, and I have used information from this plan as well as the charge of our commissioners' recommendations, and the framework, as well as contractors, to help develop my proposed strategy. Starting with 2026, we're going to begin with Global Urban Strategies, one of our contractors, who will support our community engagement efforts by developing a data-informed strategy, focusing on research groups in areas that the commission will visit in 2026, data that will also include geographic and regional messaging to reach community, and informing effective outreach and support for engagement to better connect. Followed by vital research, who will investigate how to build co/shared governance between community. Again, this is something that we heard a lot during our roadshow, wanting more government participation in a way that's more authentic and less transactional. This will be informed into a brief and later presented to the commission, and they will be defining as well as investigating what co-governance can look like while maintaining community at the center. The Office of Land Use and Climate Innovations team will also be supporting our staff by identifying different levels of virtual community engagement. I think virtual community engagement has been something our commission can further expand upon and explore to broaden our outreach when appropriate, as I also want to highlight and note there is still a digital divide. Once virtual engagement strategies have been identified, it will be incorporated into our regular listening session or information sessions, as well as meet and greets timeline. I developed a community engagement post-event survey, and the purpose of this is to really gather more data specifically from community as well as community-based organizations from our meet and greets and information sessions to evaluate and analyze how we can better improve our engagement practices during our community meet and greets as well as outreach, and also adjusting if there's any efforts that we need to better adapt to better position ourselves to meet community where they're at. And I will be sharing the results with the commission as part of the public annual report. I do want to note in this timeline, in the next slide, I'm going to jump to 2027 and 2028, but I will circle back to 2026 to highlight our future engagement. So commission staff will continue supporting our community engagement efforts by organizing panel discussions on equitable community engagement best practices, so state agencies as well as ourselves can better position each other to meet community where they're at. Some of the topics I've been brainstorming include one, a more trauma-informed approach when we're engaging with community, especially when we're dealing with sensitive information and discussions and conducting meetings with communities that might have become more vulnerable than they already were. In addition, also wanted to explore how we can better improve tribal engagement and outreach, since that was an experience that we had in Klamath that I've heard from commissioners was really wonderful and powerful. I want to continue to explore how we can also engage tribal engagement more thoughtfully. I have been brainstorming an idea specifically around a community collaborative conference with one of my colleagues, Jessica. And specifically, this came out of inspiration from the road show. I noticed during our conversations, there has been a sense of urgency to address some of the issues, challenges that communities are continuing to endure. So I'm hoping to propose a conference for community to network with change makers, advocates, and other community-based organizations the commission has partnered with to better position community to identify resources of direct support, and for community-based organizations to share their services and how they can better combat inequities that these communities are facing and enduring. This conference may be in collaboration with other government agencies such as OCPSC. Me and my fellow staff members attended one of their regional convenings, and I think the format of how they conducted their event was well done, and we're definitely drawing inspiration from that. And this will inform the work of the commission by building more equitable pathways of community engagement while keeping the needs of community again at the center. In 2028, staff will be developing a brief guide to support community awareness and better to access government resources as well as grants. And this could be in the form of a one-pager detailing in simple language, again, so it's accessible to community. And this came out of a recommendation from you, Commissioner Salas. Followed by staff will also be considering developing a section in the annual report on the impacts of immigration and the changing of demographics and communities. I think now more than ever, it's important to know and acknowledge what we're observing with communities and how the shifts are impacting newcomer populations as well as immigrant populations that have been in existence here. And this came out of a recommendation from Commissioner Pastor. The communications team from Land Use and the Climate Innovations Department will also be following along with us for our meet and greets and listening sessions. They will be conducting interviews with community members to better capture and record themes that we're hearing from community, as well as capture storytelling. And this was inspired by Global Urban Strategies community engagement that I will later be discussing. So to highlight some of the contractors and resources that we're currently working with to help support our work around community engagement include Global Urban Strategies, As I shared before, they're developing a community engagement strategy that is more data informed and incorporates the dissemination of information as well as outreach to community. Vital Research will continue conducting research services, and they will be developing a brief or memo on shared governance, as well as incorporating considerations to community compensation. Again, I think that's been another challenge that we have been noticing in our engagement, so looking forward to seeing what they produce. And then staff will continue hosting our community engagement events, as well as identifying new ways to inform community while also sustaining a collaborative relationship, as advised in our charge. So I'm gonna give a quick sneak peek to Global Urban Strategy's data-informed approach to our community engagement. And they're gonna be highlighting in their strategy our upcoming visits in 2026 and utilizing data as well as locally informed information to help produce the strategy. The strategy will help deepen our participation, as well as strengthen relationships and improve our outreach to be more effective by guiding staff on how to build trust and visibility within each community. This work will emphasize a relationship-based grassroots approach on connecting authentically with communities and identifying key opportunities for engagement with both residents as well as community partners, government partners. Some of the data that they will include, first off, will be geographic, again, based off of the locations we will be visiting in 2026. Demographic data highlighting priority populations, but not limited to the LGBTQIA+ community, non-visible and visible disability groups, elderly or aging populations, as well as religious or spiritual groups, and much more. It was important to note in their strategy to include relevant regional issues or environmental stressors and culturally significant holidays and events, again, to make sure our meetings are accessible and inclusive. So I'm going to share some of their content on a couple of the cities/counties that they have researched, and they've done this for, again, each location we will be visiting. The first I will share is about San Diego. So specifically, the type of engagement we will have to do is really looking at systems that reflect the city's geographic, linguistic, and sociocultural complexity. So the outreach will be utilizing effective pathways that residences already use for sharing information, as well as identifying different modes of communication that communities are familiar with. So this could look like word of mouth, popular community spaces, a gathering, also using Spanish and other community-based digital networks, school districts, and then again, LGBTQIA+ spaces and infrastructures to share about the meeting. And lastly, we will hold our meet and greets or information sessions in popular spaces such as school settings or familiar spaces of gathering for community. Santa Barbara's type of outreach will look a bit different because it's going to be combining the North County's agricultural, multilingual, and working class communities while also incorporating the South Coast mixed income coastal neighborhoods, student populations, and service sector workforces. The outreach will be adapted to prioritize school district channels, service sector workers, and other populations of gatherings such as faith institutions, as well as using Mixteco and indigenous networks. Lastly, we will have our community meet and greets still in accessible settings, such as well-known venues or again, school settings. Our upcoming community engagement for 2026 looks a bit long, but I know we all can do it. Again, we're going to be traveling to new places, but also returning to places previously visited. So our first will be in March of 2026, which will be in the Central Valley, followed by Bishop in April. Klamath in May, we'll be returning there, looking forward to that. Salinas in June, again, that's another location we'll be returning to. San Diego in July, followed by Antelope Valley in September, Santa Barbara in October, Oakland in November, and finally in Sonoma for December. Okay, hopefully I went through it quick enough so we can get to the discussion. But I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback, committee members, on the proposed strategy timeline. I hope to gather your feedback since I know you both have, all of you have unique experiences and perspectives on how to maximize these strategies. So we'll go by each question. There's 4 on the screen. The first one is initial thoughts or questions to this proposed community engagement strategy. And if you see me looking down, I'm taking notes.
At this point, we would open up for discussion for our fellow commissioners. I'll start by actually thanking you and the leadership of this incredible team for all the work that has actually happened to this moment. It is obviously going through and experiencing it and participating, but just to see it over the trajectory of work, I just really want to appreciate and also appreciate your leadership in this work. So just I'm very, very proud of all the engagement and the information that has come to us through our the input of our community. I just wanted to maybe just begin by a couple of things and then open it up to my fellow commissioners. I am very thankful for the pictorial notes capturing of, because I really do think that it provides individuals an opportunity to see a lot of that information in a much more accessible way. I am very excited about the idea of a community engagement conference. I also would want to maybe just recommend that we think about how we could capture people's input in their own words. And so that could be in our own voice, whether it's we connect with somebody who could act, who in real time can be capturing people's recommendations, reflections, and that we could actually create like a video testimony or video recommendations and input. What I find is that many times people's words and people's thoughts are actually translated by somebody else. And so sometimes just hearing people in their own words, I think would be very important, and that we think about if it's possible in terms of resource wise, how we could incorporate it in many of our community engagement in the same way that these pictorial note taking has been taken. In terms of the community engagement conference, just knowing what the situation is in the state of California, the thought of partnering with the California Department of Social Services and their Immigration Services Unit, with the possibility of also incorporating some service delivery around legal assistance. And the reason I say that is that a lot of people are that we have been working with who have been impacted by a lot of the immigration enforcement tell us they didn't know that some of these services existed. So just partnering and thinking about that, there's a wealth of resources, both informational, but also just direct services. I will leave it there to open it up for my fellow commissioners. So Commissioner Matthews and Commissioner Hendrick.
I'll let Commissioner Hedrick go first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the work and the recap. Excited about what's coming in 2026. Do we want to talk about that now? I don't want to be off.
I think we can talk about anything. We have our 4 questions to guide us, so you can maybe point to which one you wanted to talk to.
Okay. So looking at in community engagement of 2026, I'm wondering if you could talk through the process. We're still leaving out the northeastern part of the state wholly. And I'm wondering if you can just, I know that it's a heavy schedule. So would that be like 2027, or like when will we touch that region of the state?
I can respond to that. There are some challenges, I think, logistically getting out that way. Also in ensuring that we have a realistic schedule that our staff can actually, in traveling and also facilitating a tremendous amount of work. We want to make sure that we're able to do it with time and attention. I mean, and just as an example, Commissioner Hedrick, it took a year's worth of conversation to get us into Klamath, for example. And so we want to make sure that, one, we identify the right community partner to begin those conversations, build out that relationship in the northeastern part of the state, and then work towards what designing a community engagement platform or space could look like. If there are recommendations of partners to engage, I believe we've had some initial conversations with United Way Northern California, which might be just the first initial place to start. But yeah, we would love any recommendations, particularly for organizations, even tribal communities, that you think would be welcoming to the Racial Equity Commission. We do live in a very diverse state, and we want to make sure we're coming into spaces where there is a level of psychological safety, not just only for our commission, but also the community members that would be in attendance.
Yep, understood. I will think through recommendations for that region and send them to staff.
Anything else, Commissioner Hendrick?
Not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Matthews?
Yeah, so first of all, I like the strategy. I love how it reflects the conversations that we've had for the last almost 2 years and what we've heard. Couple of thoughts that I did have in relationship to the questions you posed. So I think a lot of times engagement is driven by ongoing communication. And so the first question that I kind of had is related to that. What does our distribution list look like? So love that we have a great strategy. And everywhere we go, every community that we touch, I would love for them somehow, if we're not already doing this, to be part of some ongoing communication strategy. So what I mean is this, we just delivered the framework. I'm doing a lot of work in my area, sending text and emails and all that kind of stuff. It'd be great if the commission were driving some of that, almost like a public affairs strategy. I think that could be helpful. And at a minimum, you all would start to build a distribution list that is massive and could help mobilize communities by maintaining that level of engagement. The other thing I wanted to mention on that very specifically. So we just saw the bond, the bound book of the framework, which is amazing. I really would love like 20 to 30 copies if I could pay for them, but we can't do that, at least like email. And so I'm thinking about all of my local government community, and thinking about all of the people who are part of that community, who we don't necessarily always think of as part of community, but they are part of community. They want to see this work flourish as well. And so how are we engaging with government community at the state, not just at the state level, but I mean, to some extent at the local municipality level as well. And again, that list that we build could be part of that somehow. And then the same thing with faith communities. So I love that we've identified that. And I think we need to, I'm not sure I'm clear on what our engagement strategy is with faith communities, kind of ongoing. And so I know we will continue to build on that strategy, but I do think that is one where I'd like to see maybe a little more meat eventually, not necessarily immediately. I love the geographical equity, but I don't know that I feel like, I think without some additional meat, I'm a pastor. I know several pastors in the community. I'm connected to Faith in the Valley, and then I know the broader umbrella organization. I don't know that they're hearing about any of this if they're not initiating or doing work themselves to learn about it. And so just thinking about how we're communicating there. And then the last piece, or the last question that I would have, and I don't necessarily want to see something soon, but how are we measuring success? I think it's always going to be important for us to have some clear metrics of, okay, this is what we set out to do. And now this is a process that we're going to do every year. How are we measuring success that aligns with the strategy? And so those are the only things that I would add.
Yeah, if I could respond. A couple things with our distribution. Typically at the end of any presentation, we do have a QR code that is on the screen for which people can scan and sign up for our newsletter, which they'll receive communication on materials that are published as well as meetings. We often do have highlights of our commissioners, as well as other equity-centered organizations or entities that want to promote a thing. So we do have a newsletter. I don't know how, or distribution list. I don't know how big the list is itself. One thing we cannot do is require people to, for example, sign in at public meetings and take their email address. We have to make sure that people have access, and asking for contact information is not necessarily, it could create a barrier to access if people do not want to provide their information. So that is something that we do not do, and is practice when it comes to public advisory meetings. I think developing a public affairs strategy or just something a little bit more robust in engagement, we will get, I think, more content from Global Urban Strategies over the next, I mean, if you go back a slide, you can see that that contract is through, excuse me, December 2027. So there is quite a bit of time with the work with that entity. And I think at a subsequent meeting of either this committee or the commission, we might have a little bit more meat to the bones of what a more robust and concrete strategy could look like. I do think the challenge, and this continues to be a challenge, is just resources. We did meet with funders earlier this week to talk a little bit about funding opportunities, and communication and engagement of communities is very centered to what we were asking for philanthropic funds for. Our budget is extremely limited, and the commission itself is only funded through 2030. And when you think about communication and the importance of building a relationship that is ongoing, it is not something that is, oh, one and done, you get a newsletter and that's it. But we are really trying to be relational and have that ongoing engagement. And really just the structure of our budget does not allow for that at this moment. But I do think there are opportunities for us to work with our own internal communications and external affairs department within the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation to build out a public affairs strategy. And then finally, I'll share with local government engagement. One of our requirements is to provide technical assistance to local governments that are implementing strategies in alignment with the framework. The framework just being released, we have not heard from any local governments at the moment, and I think that potentially is a testament to other things going on in the universe. People wanting to continue to do the work without putting themselves out there in vulnerable positions. And so we might receive outreach and engagement in the things that we have done with local government. And when I say local government, it is more broad, I think, than just traditional government structures. If we're invited into a community, we do encourage and ask, like, who are your local government folks that may want to be engaged? We've particularly done that in Imperial, where they do have someone that is in local government that is a specific connector for any state government relations, but not all communities have that. The other way that we do connect into local government is through local community-based organizations and them saying, you know what, we'd like to invite the mayor to this. And for example, when we were in Riverside, the mayor came and provided some words, and we've had a couple different elected officials pop into our meetings when they're aware of them. So it is not a cohesive strategy on our local engagement or local government engagement, but I think that itself will also be fleshed out in our next committee meeting a little bit more, and continue to build out how do we balance the capacity of our existing staff with the resources that we do have to provide that level of information. Could it be hosting? One of the things that I think came up at our last meeting was potentially hosting like an open house for state government to be able to learn, well, could we do something like that in partnership with an organization like CSAC? There also is, in at least Northern California, there is the Bay Area Racial Equity Health Initiative that we might be able to partner with that touches 10 counties within the San Francisco Bay Area with a focus on racial equity. And so there are different places and spaces where I think equity leaders, as well as more broader government, are convened. It could be just something as simple as submitting an abstract for a conference. So I actually just got a request from Kim Desmond, who is in the city of San Diego, who's an equity leader down there, about presenting at a national conference on social equity. So there are a lot of different opportunities. It really just comes down to bandwidth and capacity for us.
Awesome. No, thank you for sharing those. And I did have one last idea, and this is pie in the sky, so not even possible. But you talked about a conference. If we do actually do a conference, maybe at some point we could build to this being like the equity Oscars for like state entities or even local municipalities. That would be kind of cool. But that's all for me. Thanks.
Yeah, I would say that in my own vision of what a conference could look like, because there's also this idea of a statewide equity conference, because we don't have one of those. And in my mind, I'll model it similar to what they do at Cal Forward, where you're bringing in subject matter expertise. You're able, and whether this be a community-centered conference or something that is more broadly around systems change in government, I do think it is important to acknowledge those champions that are out there, and provide the platform for them to not only share what they are doing, but create that knowledge transfer so that others can learn and understand how they may be able to adapt their strategies for their own environment or context.
This conversation just brought a couple more items to my mind. Number one, on the statewide equity conference or the conference, just the partnering with the Racial Equity Coalition, just because we have so many organizations that are connected to that body, and that could actually really support in the participation. The other piece was also, and this is a strategy we use, which is to really connect to meetings that are already happening. So certainly, I really do think we have to prioritize our counties right now. So thinking about when the next statewide county supervisors meeting is happening. I've presented in the past where there could be just a learning session around what this framework is. It allows for people to learn about it and understand. And I also think on a resource savings perspective, it's they're already there. They've done the work. And I think just exploring and per quarter, like which are some of these local government engagements that are already happening and presenting in that way. And then I do think that there's an opportunity also to think about it's called the New American Media. And what it is, it's a lot of ethnic newspapers, radio stations, et cetera, and connecting with their leadership. And I will definitely provide that to you, which is also just this is news. And so connecting with a lot of these reporters, a lot of these individuals and they connect with almost every single spoken language in the state of California. And so a news story that connects, and it's a form of community, it's also a form of community engagement that I think we could that would really benefit our ability to disseminate what this framework is about and how it impacts individuals. Yeah.
Just one last comment. So last question, what should this committee consider as we prepare to share the strategy with the full commission later today? I would say, I believe what you share was great. And then maybe kind of the top 3 or 4 notes that you're taking from this discussion, I think should be sufficient, at least for me.
Thank you. To recap some of the notes I've heard so far. One is looking into capturing community voices, reflections, recommendations in real time, and forming it into some sort of video. as well as looking for the conference to have some form of support when it comes to legal assistance as well as immigration services and partnering with them. Looking into some sort of communication or publication strategy that will maintain ongoing connection with community, as well as a distribution list of our engagement on how we can better engage with community, but also with local government entities and communities. Also exploring more pathways for engagement with religious groups. And that could also look, the information can also be provided from Global Urban Strategy as well, highlighting how we can measure success, as that has been a returning conversation. Looking into partnering with resources with equity leaders who are doing the work already, and doing some sort of acknowledgement, perhaps at the conference, of acknowledging equity leaders who are doing the work, as well as sharing the knowledge that they have, prioritizing counties, and perhaps traveling to meetings for local county supervisors and holding some form of learning sessions around the framework. Noting, I want to make sure I have this right, Solace. Is it numeric media? Is that what you said?
New American.
New American media. Okay, awesome. To better engage community and share information and connection when it comes to the framework. And then Hedrick also noting again how we can better expand our engagement. And it was east of the Sierras, is that correct?
I mean, at this point, like east of I-5 north.
East of I-5 North. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else that I did not capture that you guys would like to share or reiterate?
That I didn't address, which was the measure of success and implementation. We are currently working to identify a contractor to build out an evaluation strategy. And that evaluation strategy will be more focused on how the framework is implemented, which community engagement is a key piece of that. So making sure that we are including measures and metrics around that specifically, and how agencies and departments are implementing the framework and how are they even themselves. But I think also that for me, that adds, we also need to look as a commission how we are modeling and or contributing to those metrics as well.
I was just thinking, we're at, it's like a company. We have our strategies, and annually, now that we've delivered the framework, I think we just need to be clear on what our wins are annually. And so making sure we have clarity on that piece.
Yeah, and I would just say that the annual report actually provides the space to capture that and disseminate it out. Our first annual report is due in December of 2026, and it'll be similar in that we're trying to create spaces through our commission meetings and committee meetings to have the ongoing dialogue to narrow us into what are impact metrics that we need to track over time, what are key topics that we think are important to elevate, whether they be immigrant, newcomer communities, seniors, or are there tailoring our approaches or shifting our approaches within the framework that better meet the needs of those that are implementing the framework or the audience of the framework, which is really centered around government. So that product or that deliverable does provide kind of some breadth for us to cover much of this content. And again, this is, I think, an ongoing journey, and part of the next, particularly 4 years between now and the scheduled sunset of the commission, is how are we institutionalizing the thinking of the framework and the work, so that should the commission sunset on June 30th, 2030, this work has been institutionalized in a way that allows it to continue and be sustained.
Love it.
I think one more thing, as you talk to our contractor with global strategies, the idea really think through like what's our urban strategy and what's our rural strategy, and also that as we think about evaluation, how did we balance that? How are we able to connect with our communities, independent of the geography that they live, or very specific as to where the geography that they live. And then this is more a recommendation around technical assistance, maybe the technical assistance committee about how, as we go to different communities, engage local government, and when people are asking for our technical assistance to support them as they implement the framework. So I think that would be important to incorporate.
Yeah, that's definitely for our next committee meeting,
Mhm.
but I will say that there is quite a bit of opportunity, I think, and we can place ourselves out there, but we also like local government has to want to do this as well. And so
Mhm.
there's a meeting of the minds that does have to happen, but I do agree that making sure that folks are aware is really, really important.
Mhm. That's it. I
Thank-
think, mhm. No, go on.
Thank you for that circle back, Dr. Estes, and noting looking into a contract that will develop an evaluation strategy. And again, looking at agencies and departments on how they can implement the framework and embed it institutionally, and also hoping that that creates systems change, whether or not the commission continues or it sunsets. And then I hear you, Commissioner Salas, in making sure that Global Urban's community engagement strategy is very specific in their geographic data that they're noting.
One note that I would like to raise for this committee here is Dylan has presented really kind of an overarching strategy, and we do have it noted here on the agenda as an action item. It is your choice as to whether you want to take action now or whether you want to see a little bit more in a future meeting, whether it be a full commission meeting or another committee meeting before taking action. But I did want to acknowledge that there is an opportunity to take action should you want to.
I'm good taking action now.
Yeah.
It's just
It gives more direction. So just continue. I think this concludes our discussion. And so we will not take any public comments related to agenda item number 4, which is our update on implementation of the community engagement strategy and next steps.
Thank you. As a reminder, you may submit a virtual public comment card by visiting racialequity.lci.ca.gov/meetings and completing the public comment form linked there. You can also pick up an in-person public comment card at the public comment staff table in return. You will need to submit a public comment card for each item you wish to speak on. And there are no public comments for this, so pass it back to you, Commissioner Salas.
Okay. So at this moment, I will now request a motion and also a second to bring forth the proposed community engagement strategy to the full commission for consideration.
so moved.
Second.
Okay. Please take the roll call vote.
Commissioner Virginia Hedrick,
Aye.
Commissioner Traco Matthews,
Aye.
Commissioner Angelica Salas.
Aye.
The vote is 3 in favor of approving bringing forth the community engagement strategy to the full commission, and it passes.
Okay.
Back to you.
Well, thank you so much. And just once again, I just really want to thank staff for the incredible work that has led us to the ability to take this vote today. We will now move on to agenda item number 5, which is next steps for our staff action. Our discussions today covered the community engagement strategy. Dr. Estes, what are the action items that you captured today? I know we just did a listing out, but would love to hear you.
I'm going to have to say ditto to what Dylan wrote down. But what I will say is I think what's been important in the discussion here today, and what I always love about this commission and in our committees is the further refinement and direction that we receive. It's a lot of times we play the guessing game as
Yeah.
to listening and trying to interpret what you all are sharing in different points of meetings and conversations and curating things for you all to be able to just have something to reflect from. And so receiving additional direction, and of course, there's always flexibility, given that there is a full body, and Commissioner Salas bringing this to the full commission in this afternoon will allow for more robust discussion and additional feedback. A couple action items that I will just acknowledge. Look, I'm going to give you the commissioner's action items. Commissioner Hedrick, you're going to think about some recommendations on community partners in the northeastern part of the state, or shall we say, east of I-5, to connect with, to start to build relationships and plan for future meetings out there. One that I have for myself is making sure we're engaging our communications and external affairs team on how do we build out a more robust public affairs engagement strategy that complements what we're already doing with, I think, global urban, but really what is within kind of the locus of control of our state government resources versus what is something we might be able to fundraise behind. I would just add, Commissioner Salas, you're going to make a connection for us with New American Media. There's a need to look in balancing urban and rural, and I'll even add frontier, because Klamath, for example, is very much frontier. I think Northeast California is very much frontier, and that's very different from a Delano, which is rural. And just making sure that we're having and thinking more geographically, but how do you balance that level of engagement and need and meeting people where they are, and that it looks different. The final action items that I'm really kind of leaning into is how to best engage local governments and considering them as part of the community. And as much as there's an intersection with implementation and technical assistance, so that's something we might want to talk about, is doing a joint meeting related to that level of conversation, but making sure that we're leveraging and using existing meetings with other communities or other leaders to be able to talk more about the framework and how it intersects with their existing work. So if there are any other recommendations of locations where those conversations are happening, we will gladly take those, and happy to cold reach out, but would love also warm handoffs if those are available. And so this does give quite a bit for our team to manage, yet we have like 5 more committees. But all at the same time, like, we do this with joy, and just knowing and getting to see how the efforts through your direction kind of result in our engagement is just really, really powerful. And as much as it is a lot, it also just shows the importance of why we do this and the intention that you have to carry in this process. So thank you all for that.
Thank you, Dr. Estes. And I love, this is our to-do. I love that. That is exactly right. So thank you so much, Dr. Estes, for your leadership and for moving us forward. I think we're now going to be moving into adjournment. So I just want to thank you to the Racial Equity Commission staff, commissioners, and the public for joining us today. I know we didn't have public comment today, but we know that we wouldn't have been able to get to this strategy, this framework, without our public and everybody who's actually participated. So we thank them for their engagement throughout this process. That brings us a meeting to adjournment. May we adjourn our committee meeting by common consent?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I would just say next, I would thank you to the Racial Equity Commission staff, commissioners, and the public for being here. The Racial Equity Commission will convene again for the Implementation and Technical Assistance Committee meeting at 10:45. Well, actually, very, very soon, 10:40, in the same space. In addition, a commission meeting is also set for today, December 17th, 2025, at 1 p.m. Both the committee and the commission meeting will be accessible in person in Sacramento and virtually, and we invite folks to join us for this meeting. With that, we are adjourned at 10:38 a.m. Thank you.